Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, we certainly live in interesting times and it's been another huge week for global markets and cryptocurrency markets. We're going to go through all the headlines like usual and have a look at Ethereum and Tron, two of the better performers in the top 10 this week. Before we do that though, I just want to announce that we are producing some educational units that are going to be available in our premium education group. We're going to go into some advanced fundamentals, some trading techniques, and even this morning I did a deep dive for members into a few different aspects of the next coming boom that I see for Ethereum and a lot of the related companies and coins as well. So if you're interested in that stuff, guys, head to nuggetsnews.com.au to join our premium education. It's $35 a month. So on this day in crypto history, well, it was only last year that Bitcoin dominance hit a new all-time low in the low 30s. It bottomed out eventually. 2017, Money Magazine published Why You Would Never Invest in Bitcoin when it hit a bubble of $1,000 at the time they called it. Mike Tyson launched his own Bitcoin wallet service back in 2016. Bitstamp was hacked, their hot wallet, in 2015 for $5 million. And in 2014, the 1 millionth Bitcoin wallet was created. So I know you guys are enjoying that segment. I love going back a trip down memory lane as well. And speaking of that, don't miss our year in review and especially our 2019 predictions, all the themes and a few projects. And I am going to be producing this week some sort of top 10 list that's been requested by you guys. And we'll have a look over last year's top 10 as well. Into the world headlines though. Opioid crisis is something that I'm pretty passionate about, and this is an epidemic. The number of people that have been affected or killed by opiates exceeds the total of deaths from the Vietnam War, and this is something that is just completely out of control in the US, and a lot of it is caused by big pharma and people that start on painkillers and get this dependence and end up going to heroin or other options. So this is an issue that I'm going to continue to tackle on this channel because it's actually to the point now where it's impacting economies and workforces, and it all ties back into cryptocurrency in some form or another. Closer to home, my hometown of Launceston topped the charts around Australia with 11% price growth. So our home has doubled in value in the past 5 or 6 years. And there's a lot of regional areas that are still strong. Now, whether or not these are all going to come down, if Sydney and Melbourne continue to be dragged down, that's a topic of much debate. But we've been pretty negative on Sydney and Melbourne property. It's important to highlight that there are some regions that are still growing strongly. All this talk of the Australian economy and the housing market, we've been saying we're heading for a big downturn in the coming years, guys, and here it is, the Aussie dollar hitting record lows in the past 10 years. So pretty crazy stuff. The Aussie dollar was, $1.10 only a few years ago, and here it is breaking 70 cents, and a lot of people saying lower levels to come. Government shutdown in the US continues. Whether or not this is all just over that border wall that Trump wants, I think the world realizes that the day-to-day activities of most of us continue even when government is in shutdown. So in some ways, it's a good thing. Look, I like to stay out of the US politics, but it is crazy what is going on and these debt ceilings, these government shutdowns, and the headlines that come with it. Another interesting headline this week was a group of hackers claiming that they've got some pretty sensitive or damaging papers that they are going to release if they're not paid a Bitcoin ransom. So I believe they released the first lot and there wasn't anything too damning, but I know there's a lot of people that have gone down the rabbit hole and like to ask hard questions. I'm not too fussed what you believe on all these different conspiracies, but I think it's important to be open-minded and always examine both sides of any argument, because there's certainly some interesting aspects of what happened around 9/11, but I don't want to go into that too much today. In terms of central banks, I think something I tweeted this week was this notion of just refusing to be honest with people, and they're using these words instead of using, downturn or bad growth, or, they have to use these euphemisms because they just cannot be honest with people, and that's really a facade. They've never predicted a crisis in the past. We know the benefits of Bitcoin and the downfalls of banks, and this is seriously the most important factor to have your head around, how money and debt works. And it's going to be I guess the main issue for 2019 I see is central bank policy, and if they can keep raising interest rates because of the amount of debt. So whether it's Aussie home prices and sellers are no longer recording the price because things aren't great anymore. So when it's all going up, everyone's bragging. It's the same for Apple shares. They said we're going to stop talking about unit sales, and now Ford cars. So it's just all these big companies. These are signs that the economy is weakening, and people don't want to report the numbers when they're bad, but everyone wants to brag about their earnings and so on when it's good. So that should have been a giveaway for people about a month or so ago when Apple said we're no longer report unit sales because they're so bad. And sure enough, Apple shares plunged around $60 billion in one day. Now they're down 350 billion from their peak. Now keep in mind that the total market cap of crypto is, about $100 billion these days, or Bitcoin around $60 billion. So this is just crazy that one company in one day, because of some bad earnings and some worries about unit sales in China and so on, can plunge the entire market cap of Bitcoin. Just shows you how small it still is comparatively. Now, a few months ago, we said the only thing that can save this stock market is the Fed coming out and saying, hey, we're not going to raise interest rates as aggressively as we've guided. And this is an 820-point bounce after the Fed came out and reassured investors. So the language that they use there is one of patience and saying that there's no longer a preset path. Now, a lot of people have taken this as the Fed have no idea what they're doing and they are backing away. That's certainly how the market has interpreted it, that they are not going to keep raising interest rates. The market's had their tantrum. This is a standoff, as we've spoken about before. And now that markets are crashing, the Fed have come out and taken their foot off the gas and said, hey, we don't want to crash markets. And it's crazy that central banks and stock markets, the big boys at mission control, as I call them, are the ones that determine how the world works. There is no longer free markets. It's all determined by these guys in suits at keyboards. And don't ever forget that these are the bank fines just since the GFC alone. So, a lot of these are bigger than Bitcoin's entire market cap. As we've said, just this stuff really eats away at me, guys. I think it's important to highlight all this corruption that still continues to this day. Deutsche Bank's derivatives books, that report is due out any day now. Last year, they had around 48 trillion, not billion, not million, trillion in derivatives exposure. Now, Deutsche Bank has been extremely troubled. Their shares are at all-time lows. I'm going to be very interested to see how many derivatives they have on their balance sheet. So, derivatives, debt, central bank policy, guys, these are all going to be huge drivers of what Bitcoin's price is going to do in the future. The IMF did release new data this week on global debt. So most estimates are normally around the 250 trillion mark. You can have a look at the different size debt to GDP ratios of different countries, emerging markets and so on there. But pretty interesting statistics. Global debt continues to grow. And since 2007, we've had those record low interest rates, and now with debt at record highs. If they're going to raise those interest rates, there's a lot of companies, they call them zombie companies. They can't even afford to pay the interest on the debt, on the money they've borrowed. So it's all easy to borrow money when there's interest rates are at zero. But now that things are going up, whether it's your mortgage, your car loan, your student loan, all these companies that have borrowed money, all of a sudden they can't afford their payments, and that is why global stock markets have been crashing. Into the crypto news now. So BitTorrent to sell their own crypto token. This is all built on top of Tron. Binance are going to be launching this, and look, I'm not really sure if this is a token for token's sake. A lot of people are already seeding and sharing content. They're saying they're going to try and create incentives. Look, I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, but it's interesting to see that Binance are coming out with this launch pad. They've been moving and shaking recently, launching Ripple pairs and so on, but Tron has certainly been one of the strongest performers this week, with the market viewing this as a positive sign for them launching that token. I did a fantastic interview. This was one of my favorite interviews with Jez Sand, the founder of Funfair. So we talk about scaling the project, some of the issues that they've faced, and several projects are facing, about onboarding users and so on. Make sure you check out that interview I did with Jez if you haven't already. Some good news for Monero this week. accepting payment or for Fortnite. So you've all heard about this game that's just played by millions of people the world over, and exclusively accepting Monero is as a method of payment. These privacy coins, I've always said, it's about the community. How many people are going to be using this? How many people are passionate about it? So getting partnerships like this is pretty cool stuff. I'm very happy for the Monero community. Now, this was an announcement that I got pretty excited about. So DX Exchange is launching top 10 traded shares as ERC20 tokens. So Google shares, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, these are all going to be available and traded 24/7. Now, the exchange itself, it's in Estonia. It's pretty small. It's not going to have big volumes. So this announcement itself isn't that significant, but I think we can look back on something like this as a turning point in 10 years' time from now when shares are all trading on some blockchain. Whether it's the Ethereum public blockchain remains to be seen, but 24/7 trading is one of the biggest advantages of cryptocurrency markets versus stock markets that trade, 6 or 7 hours a day, maybe 5 days a week, closed on weekends. I think we're moving to this truly global market that is going to be built on one of the public blockchains. So that's why I was so excited about this announcement. This week was Proof of Keys Day, and it was pretty shocking for me for, the majority of people that I spoke to either did not know what private keys were, they had majority of their funds on an exchange, or they weren't going to bother even attempting to take it off the exchange and have their coins in their own custody. So our audience tends to be one that's more advanced users, and I love you guys for that, and most of you do have your crypto on hardware wallets and so on, but it was shocking to read some of the messages I got this week for people that didn't even know what private keys were. They'd never installed a crypto wallet on their own computer or held their own funds and private keys. Please check out that video if you haven't already. I explain why it's so important and why, myself and others have lost so much money over the years with Mt. Gox and other hacks when it wasn't as easy to set up a Bitcoin wallet back in the day. Some positive news now, Mimblewimble. So this is one of the privacy implementations that may be added to Bitcoin in the future. There's lots of proposals being worked on, but it's great to see Beam. Another one, Grim, I believe, is also implementing this as well. And these are some very promising privacy features that may be absorbed and added to the Bitcoin main chain in the coming years. But it's great to see smaller cryptocurrencies proving that this technology can work. Craig Wright, I think this week he turned his Twitter private, so he obviously got sick of blocking a lot of people, and he does put up with a bit of crap, but he certainly gives it out. And I think if there's one guy in this space that everybody knows, loves, and respects, it's Andreas Antonopoulos, and Craig's labelled him a shitcoin expert this week. That's pretty disappointing. I think the perception of the Bitcoin Cash community hasn't been great since that turmoil they've gone through. And there's a lot of people on vocal online that are really critical of anyone else that doesn't agree with them versus, there's people of our followers that, love Ripple or Tron or some of these more divisive coins that can still be friends or still follow other videos or watch and research other coins. But it's really frustrating that, particularly for the people in the Bitcoin Cash community that are doing good things and trying to help developing countries, that some of the majority of the people that I see online are just bullying others, or I just can't deal with that sort of stuff, guys. It's so frustrating, and that's the feedback I get from people in the Bitcoin Cash community that are ashamed to have to put up with people like that in their own community. And that's why I think no matter what happens in the future, Craig has sort of dug his own grave now. On to some Ethereum news. So NVIDIA facing class action. Now, they came out and said last year sometime that they were going to be making lots of money, and even if cryptocurrency had a downturn, it would still be very profitable. And now they've faced enormous losses from their cryptocurrency mining side of things, and there's just no longer that demand for the GPU cards to mine cryptocurrency, and they are facing a class action lawsuit. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome of that. But what's happening is a lot of people are trying to move to proof of stake. So Ethereum core devs are talking about in the meantime, until they make that switch, trying to make an ASIC resistant algorithm. So they know they're going to have to stay at proof of work for another 12 months or so on the Ethereum chain, and they don't want to become more centralized and dominated by those ASIC miners, as was the case in Bitcoin a little while back. Now, Bitcoin's since become more decentralized, but we don't want Ethereum to be dominated by those ASIC miners. So that's great to see. And Consensus also partnered with AMD this week. And again, the thing that is a little bit confusing for people here is the fact that Ethereum is moving to proof of stake, and that's probably 1-2 years away. And now they're partnering up with a chip manufacturer in the meantime. So again, they're working on the proof of work algorithm for the next 12 months or so, and then there's going to be changes in the future with proof of stake. And once they do make that move, that's where these headlines come in. So the main point of proof of stake, guys, is to be far more efficient, and that includes energy efficiency. Now, some people will argue from the Bitcoin community that the trade-off is security. Proof of work is the most secure algorithm that's been around for 10 years and never been hacked. And staking can lead to people buying up and being centralized and so on. So we won't go down that rabbit hole and have that debate today, but if a cryptocurrency is purely proof of stake, yes, it is more energy efficient. Now, this week there's a few hard forks coming up. Now, the actual main Ethereum net upgrade is on the 16th of January, and this isn't contentious. So this isn't like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash that couldn't agree, or Satoshi's Vision and ABC that couldn't agree, and they split off and go their own ways. This is not like that. This is just a network upgrade. We should not see two coins come out of it, but we do have these smaller coins pop up, and a lot of the time these just confuse people. So people think that they're going to receive free coins, and these forks are akin to Bitcoin Diamond or Bitcoin Private. They're tiny, tiny forks, and I don't even think we can give them as much credit as those coins, which are listed automatically by, say, Binance and some other exchanges. So I haven't seen any exchanges that have come out and said they're going to support these smaller hard forks of the coin. And I've even read that this now fork is just a straight up scam. So if you read things about free coins and airdrops, be very careful, guys. Never put your private key into a wallet that you don't know or trust. This hard fork is not contentious. It should just be the entire Ethereum community upgrades and implements those new features, but I'll do a detailed video on that this week. So Bitcoin's 10th birthday anniversary. Great to see BitMEX getting the front page of the Times here. We know that in that Bitcoin Genesis block, there was that headline from during the GFC as well. The biggest news this week, and very exciting for us guys, was to help launch the Lightning Network across Australia. Now, this wallet of Satoshi, it's only a very small custodial wallet where they hold your funds. And I'll get Daniel on the channel this week to talk about the ins and outs of the wallet. But it was great to see some support across the globe for this. It's a big deal that this is rolled out and working. And when people say, Lightning Network's 12 months or 24 months away, we have to start somewhere, guys, and it's great to see Wallet of Satoshi making great inroads. Please head to nuggetsnews.com.au and read that story if you haven't already. And I'm really looking forward to answering all the questions you guys had about that wallet when we get Daniel on the channel soon. In terms of the technical analysis, we're in this tightening pattern, as you can see here. We had the 28th of December marked as a big important turning point, and we got a big push up. We haven't broken those levels yet, so the levels I'm looking at, and to be honest guys, I just want to show you the longs versus shorts before I tell you where I think the market's going. So longs have continued to really climb, and I think they're getting a little bit ahead of themselves, and we often know that the market is wrong when it comes to leverage bets. So too many people are betting that the market's going to go up, and all the people that were betting the market's going to go down have closed their positions, and they're often wrong at the exact wrong time. So what this tells me, sorry, let's zoom back in here. What this tells me, I actually think we are going to get a break, and it's going to be to the downside. Now, I think we're going to have a pretty steep sharp sell-off if we do break down, and we're going to go through these levels, around 3,600 and we have this next key turning date as the 14th of January. But if we are to break up, there's just too much overhead resistance. So we do have to break through this level here around 4,000. We've got the 50-day moving average coming in at around 4,100. So there's a lot of overhead resistance that have to take a really good announcement. I think the likely path is we get down here. And to be honest, if we have that sharp sell-off, we're only a few hundred dollars away, the chances are we're probably going to retest these lows at around 3,200. So, it's great if we put in that higher low and then we can get a step up here. But I know you guys hate it when I say a market might go down short term, but you know how bullish I am longer term. In terms of the Ethereum market, it's held up a lot better. So everyone talking about this inverse head and shoulders. This shoulder is probably has on its last glimmer of hope to form in the coming days. Again, that's just another scenario where we could get rejected. But if we have a look at other coins, Ethereum's more of this maybe a cup and handle there and broken out and holding up better. So if Ethereum can actually hold its 50-day moving average, that'd be really positive. And Litecoin's probably been the strongest here, as we see off the lows up now, around 50 or 60%. So we're going to be watching which altcoins perform best. There's definitely signs across the board that some altcoins are a long way away from making fresh lows. And even if Bitcoin has that turn down, it's going to be interesting to see if these altcoins make new lows, because this whole scenario around backed and the ETF and February, end of January, these sort of key dates, that's when I think we're going to get a lot of action. Now, the last thing to be aware of is that Bitfinex is going to be offline on Monday. So again, with this tightening pattern, it's funny how these things play out. That is going to be right there, an important point when Bitfinex is offline. And if it does have that sharp sell-off, a lot of those longs could be liquidated, which leads me, to that assumption that we could have that sharp sell-off. So I hope you've enjoyed that, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and thanks for tuning in. Cheers.